evil and their wicked laws to get unrighteous police officers out of the police department instead of protecting them, knowing that they do great harm to black people when we go through their neighborhoods. So now we're not supposed to say nothing, but Yah hears our cries. And now that Yah's hearing our cries, they want us to stop crying. That's why they're doing this. They want us to stop crying out. As it says, because the cry, can you read that?
Yes, King. Because the cry of Sodom and Amorah is great, and because their sin is very grievous.
I will
down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is coming to me, and if not, I will know.
So the heathen want us to stop crying out. That's why they're making videos like this. They want us to stop crying out. They want us to stop mentioning the Most High's name. They want us to stop saying the word sundown towns. They don't even want that word to be in our vocabulary. Because the more we cry out about these things, the faster and the more their judgments start to come. So Florida has created what? No critical race theory. You can't even talk about what they do. They're making it illegal in the state of Florida to even mention the atrocities that they have done to our people. So now Yah has visited Florida too. Let's see. Mm-hmm.
Can I while you're pulling that up, would you mind if I wanted to read just a few of the grievances to Yah?
Absolutely.
I wanted to, so people know that we're not making this up. This is not hate. This is not hate speech. Florida, Rosewood Massacre, 1923.
Oh, I see it.
Massacre, 1920.
Let me pull this up on the Christopher Goins. Thank you so much for the cash app. Let me put this on the screen so that people can see what you're reading, because I want them to hear, but I also want them to see. Let's see. This Twyla B. Thank you, Veronica Brown. God bless you and thank you. Man, let me forward this.
See, these are our cries, and we've been crying for a long time.
Okay, I have this. I want to make this bigger. Can y'all see that so people can see this?
You need to open it up and what is it? Option?
Tronlick?
No, see if you get you to open it up, make it like a PDF or something.
It wasn't allowing me to do that. Let's see. Let me try it this way.
What is it? Is it a note?
Man, give me a second, family. Let me see if I can open this up. Okay, here we go. Can y'all see that? Move down, out the way. Go ahead.
Dang. See, this is where Milton and Helen hit. Rosewood Massacre. These are our cries up to Yah. Rosewood Massacre, 1923. Ocoee Massacre, 1920. Axe Handle Saturday, 1960. Tampa Riots, 1967. Groveland 4, 1949. Newberry 6 lynching, 1916. Perry Race Riot, 1922. Tampa lynching of Robert Johnson, 1918. Lynching of Celia and Marshall Williams, 1912. Orlando Race Riots, 1919.
But this woman just said that we all Americans, right? Well, I don't see her type of American getting lynched. And look at this. This is unbelievable. Derek Yasharal, Yah bless you.
This, I think, probably last year, this problematic cop, and all of a sudden there's now a death, and this cop is associated with this incident. What say you?
Yeah, if it walks like a duck,
quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck. They have a problem. This is the great state of Alabama. Let us remind them of that, Dr. Rich. It's the same Alabama. Okay, people got to understand that in the South, those remnants are still there. There have been over 300 lynchings of African Americans over the last 66 years in just that state alone. We know that lynchings started with vigor after the Civil War, into Reconstruction, all the way up into the 20th century. And so the fact that the sheriff, and you called him out properly, Dr. Ritchie, he has a fiduciary and a moral obligation.
Right.
This is a stain and a blemish on his department. He should comport himself as if he gives a damn that this is happening under his watch, on top of reaching out to the Department of Justice. And absolutely, the Department of Justice should come into that city and do a full-fledged investigation. The state of Alabama should get involved. All the levels of government, Doc, should get involved in this, because this is a shame. And for the gentleman is not only, Mr. Richardson, is black, but to have a disability too. And we know how our sisters and brothers and family and friends in the disabled community of all backgrounds, how they are treated in this society, from making sub wages all the way to not being given the deference and the help that they need to navigate all of the systems. And that footage that you showed of them jumping on that man, sicking that dog on him, I mean, it just reminded me of how the slave catchers used to get the dog, the hounds out to chase the enslaved. It shows us how in the South in the 60s, not that long ago, how law enforcement very much was involved in hurting black people who were simply marching for the right to vote and to be considered real human beings, equal human beings in the country that we built. Those dogs were police dogs. Those water hoses belonged to the fire department, of which black people were paying the taxes for. I'm telling you, I mean, there is a saying, I didn't think of it. I don't know who did. Maybe one of our viewers know, but somebody put out there, this country is lucky that black people just want justice and not revenge. It's a hell of a thing to have to endure generation after generation after generation and not seeing much change. This is the 21st century, and you got sheriff's departments comporting themselves this way. And let us remind our viewers, Doc, a lot of elected officials were members of the KKK. Don't get it twisted. Yeah, and they still are members by way of consent and ideology. And you will see that even as the wheels of justice turn in this case, hopefully they turn a little faster than the previous case we covered, where cops there also kidnapped 2 black men, shot one in the face, threw eggs on them, kidnapped them overnight, arrested them. And when the black men came out with their story, nobody believed them, but we believed them indisputable. And now those cops who did that have been prosecuted by the state and the federal government, and they have lengthy prison sentences because those men spoke out and we believed them. And that's what it takes to transform this system. Just like they think they can make examples out of individuals who follow the law, we should make examples out of individuals where they
Did you know that the buck has the backs of drivers 50 and over?
Who's the buck and who says I'm 50 and over?
The heart.
Trigger warning. The following program is meant for both white and black audiences, and every other color imaginable.
It's 1870. The Civil War and its bloody liberation is still a fresh memory. The embers of the Confederation are smoldering in the South. The nation is more divided than ever. And years after emancipation, the African American community is beginning to thrive. Hiram Revels, born free, family established in the Americas long before the Revolution. He was a preacher, an educator, who planted schools for black children across the U.S. But on February 15, 1870, Revels would make history. Spectators packed the galleries and burst into applause as Harold Revels entered the chamber to take his oath as the first African-American senator in U.S. history.
Revels wasn't alone. He was a part of a wave of 2,000 black men elected to public office across the South. A wave that would soon be crushed. The Civil War had exposed an insidious code in America's DNA, a blueprint of power and control, labor and division.
For some hidden history, this code didn't just create laws. It created an entire race of people.
The first time
It created the greed, the division,
there is a
and the
reference to a
privilege
group of
that
humanity.
has always ruled America. This is the story of America's Black Codes.
Somebody pull a lie one day.
The lies told by history books.
A group of families dared to cross a mighty ocean to build a future for themselves in a new world.
The first permanent English settlement in the Americas was done by a corporation.
America began with corporations, plantations, and cheap labor. Remember that.
The Virginia Company of London was established in 1607, and they were commissioned by King James himself. There was no Mayflower, there was no religious freedom seekers. Their mission was to find gold and loot the Indians. They didn't find the gold that they were searching for. What they did find was a business model that would endure in the Americas from its inception to present day.
The plantation system in the United States. Cheap labor, one crop, and vast tracts of land.
Slavery wasn't institutionalized in the colonies in the early 1600s, but they still desperately needed a labor force. And the English, they grabbed the poor, the vagrants, the criminals, and they shipped them off to the New World, along with the Irish, the Polish, and a small but growing number of Africans, all into indentured servitude contracts. And if you don't know what an indentured servant is,
Indentured servants were generally white people coming from Europe.
I might not survive it. That master, he can do with me what he wants. I don't work hard enough, he can beat me. If he doesn't like the way I work, he can sell me.
After nearly a decade, the king gave permission for the English Governor General to collect and sell the captured Irish soldiers as slaves and send them to the New World in the Americas.
now the people of the servant class, they were all equals. Generally speaking, they were built to benefit the elites of Jamestown and its shareholders, corporations, plantations, and cheap labor.
Free men of African descent could own servants or slaves, and they did. They could vote, and they did. They could marry persons of the opposite sex regardless of national origin, and they did.
1621. A young man is running for his life off the shores of West African Angola. He's eventually captured, overpowered, and subdued. Life as he knows it is snatched away from him right at that moment. His family, his friends, religion, vocation is all left behind. A vacancy in Africa.
This man would come to be known as Anthony Johnson, now an indentured servant for the Virginia Company of London, but soon to be the patriarch of the first community of wealthy black property owners in America.
When he arrived at the tobacco plantation, all of the people working alongside him were of a lighter complexion. They were European, English, Irish, Polish, and they all worked side by side with each other as indentured servants in the tobacco fields of Virginia. All these different nationalities getting together, getting along. No racial divide, no social divide, working side by side with each other, sleeping in the same barracks, eating at the same tables, no problems whatsoever. For now. Anthony Johnson lived a fulfilling, full life. After his indentured servitude, he got his land, he sued Europeans, he purchased white and black slaves. And at a time when status was tied to wealth and wealth was tied to land, Anthony owned over 300 acres of land. It's apparent that race was not a discriminating tool early in the colonial times. I wonder what happened.
Lay it level with the ground, yelled Nathaniel Bacon. And they did. Jamestown was burned to the ground after the multiracial mob slaughtered their way along a bloody path. They turned their rage on Jamestown, the political and financial seat of the colony, The rebellion was an overflow from a simmering pot of extreme abuses the working class tolerated.
The poor all came together.
The elites saw this. They understood that a unified poor class was a problem. The shareholders expressed extreme concern over Bacon's rebellion. The Virginia lawmakers replied, not to worry, and that they'll be pursuing a divide and conquer strategy. With this strategy came a completely new social class, one that lowered Africans to a subhuman status.
While it elevated the social status of a new race of people, they did all this by implementing some different statutes and codes that would infamously come to be known as the Black Codes.
These are some of the very first laws that we see targeted towards a whole group of people. No attending funerals or any other group gatherings. No self-defense of any kind. 20 lashes on your bare back if you leave the plantation without permission. 30 lashes if you ever lift a hand against a white Christian. But white servants had it a little better. They could gain their freedom. They wouldn't be owned by non-white people. And black people would have to submit to all white people, no matter their authority. This was the beginning of the American caste system.
The law of 1681 represents the first time on planet Earth that there is a reference to a group of humanity called white people.
How did your ancestors get turned into white people?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea.
How did English people and German people get turned into white people?
Came to America.
Great-grandfather came here from Russia in 1910. He had to give up what it meant to be a Jew, a Russian Jew from Eastern Europe. The Irish had to do the same thing. The Italians had to do the same thing.
The Virginia Company of London would pass several laws to grant privileges to white people and force Africans into a slavery caste.
1681.
Because whiteness has never existed until 1681.
For nearly 200 years, black codes spread across the country, attempting to strip African Americans of their humanity and establishing a deeply entrenched caste system, a racial hierarchy fiercely defended by Southern Confederates.
There is no South without slavery.
April 12, 1861, the Confederate South attacks Fort Sumter, beginning the Civil War in what will become for black people a fight for freedom.
On December 31st, 1862, both free and enslaved black Americans gathered in safe spaces across the country, praying, singing, and counting down to freedom. At the stroke of midnight, the Emancipation Proclamation granted freedom to people once considered property and birthed an annual tradition of black Christians coming together for watch night services on New Year's Eve.
I was today years old when I found out watch night service on New Year's Eve was not looking for Jesus. As the war raged on.
During General Sherman's Scorched Earth campaign in the South, he met with a few African American ministers, and he wanted to ask them one thing. What could he do to help them transition from this life of slavery to this new life of being freed men? And they came to a consensus.
What do you want? What do you want from us? And he says, we want land and we want education.
He takes a few days and creates Special Order 15. He gets this special order approved by President Abraham Lincoln. It redistributes 400,000 acres of land.
That people can have family-sized plots, about 40 acres each, that they can settle on. And then later there was a separate order that said broken down army mules could also be issued to free people who were beginning to farm on this land.
This is where 40 acres and a mule came from. This is reparations. It already happened. And in a few months' time, about 40,000 acres of this land had been distributed to newly freed African Americans.
A few days after, delivering a speech suggesting that black men who served in the war received the right to vote, President Lincoln was shot in the back of the head while attending a play. Now, his successor was Andrew Johnson, POTUS number 17, self-proclaimed Moses for black people. Didn't part the sea of justice for us, though. He blocked every bill that tried to give newly freed, vulnerable black Americans any rights. This raging rant rancid supreme racist also reneged on reparations and didn't drag his feet trying to dismantle every lick of Lincoln's legacy, leading all losers as the first president to ever be impeached, Andrew Johnson, the absolute worst.
So basically, Johnson implements a plan of Reconstruction which puts control of the southern states back into the hands of the white population.
One of the results of that was some people ending up having to give up the tracts of land that they had begun farming and being kind of forced into signing labor contracts where they would now be working for the landowner.
Look, we had a blast diving deep to get this content. If you guys are enjoying this content, if you got some original information that you guys didn't know, share it with a friend, my friends. Please and thank you. With Andrew Johnson in office, black misery skyrocketed to an all-time high. The 13th Amendment liberated black folks all over the USA in 1865. But what it didn't do was offer any protections or rights for those individuals. And President Johnson refused to offer any protection to black people or any rights. In fact, around every single corner and turn, he vetoed and hampered any progress for black Americans.
When you go to the 13th Amendment, one of the fascinating things about the text of that amendment is that it says that slavery is abolished, except in the case of a punishment for a crime.
So, here's what they did in the South. They criminalized being black. They reintroduced the black codes.
A whole category of new statutes passed in almost every southern state that attached these enormous penalties to what were in reality very minor. Those were laws that were only ever enforced against African Americans.
And these black codes were a way for the South to get a lot of labor. This is the system that ushered in convict leasing.
Convict leasing was a brutal system where the state made enormous profits by leasing out prisoners, but the real financial windfall went to the private corporations and the plantations that exploited the cheap labor. While the state collected fees, companies like Tennessee Coal, Iron and Railroad Company, U.S. Steel, Sloss Furnace, Pratt Coal and Coal Company, and untold numbers of plantations made exponentially more by using convicts to fuel their industries, pick their cotton, build their railroads, mine their coal, and produce their iron. This system turned human suffering into massive corporate profits. Workers were literally worked to death and quickly replaced with another convict. In 1866, Congress gained control of the House and the Senate, and they will go on to pass a litany of civil rights bills. The 14th and 15th Amendment will be added, and they would release an instrumental piece of legislation that would change life in the South forever. Something called the Reconstruction Acts. These acts released a military occupation of the South to ensure the rights of the newly freed and liberated black citizens. This marked the beginning of an era that would never be matched again. In 1865, 8% of black people were registered to vote. By 1867, 18% of black people were registered to vote, and they exercised their rights. Blacks turned out in huge numbers at voting stations all over the South. But it wasn't just about politics. This was about revolution. Thousands of schools were built, HBCUs all over the South. For the first time ever, black children and adults walked into classrooms eager to learn and eager to level up. It wasn't just about education either. With the skill set came jobs, and with jobs came financial freedom. We're talking about black families taking control of their own future. Shout out to Madam C.J. Walker, who would soon become America's first self-made female millionaire. Meanwhile, black men are diving deep into politics, shaping laws, building schools, protecting black communities. This was a time when black families thrived. Faith, economics, education, and politics. 1898. Wilmington, North Carolina, was a multiracial hub of progressive life. The predominantly black city thrived, where the docks were overflowing with lucrative activity, and the city's factories and businesses were all doing very well.
35 years removed from slavery, and the residents of this town were successful by most measures. The political party in power were the Fusionists, who were a unique political coalition of poor white farmers and black citizens. and they dominated the political scene. They took the majority of seats in both 1894 and 1896 elections.
The Democrats were humiliated and demoralized. Something happened. The Democratic Party was a party of white voters, almost exclusively. White supremacy was central to the Democratic platform. The North Carolina militiamen were white supremacists. The Naval Regiment were white supremacists. All the surrounding towns of Wilmington were white supremacists. The people you see in the photos when there was a lynching with their children looking all gleefully at that body swinging, they were likely all Democrats. The Democrats were humiliated and demoralized. Something had to change, and a group of Democrats met to formulate a plan. It all came together in their Democratic Handbook of 1898, where they explicitly stated their goals and plans to consolidate the white vote by inciting white anger and resentment. It said, quote, "This is a white man's country, and white men must control and govern it." Charles Aycock and Josephus Daniels of the News and Observer got together to create a campaign. They would flood the media with racist cartoons and propaganda in the spring, summer, and fall of 1898, framing the fusionist government as a Negro-dominated, incompetent threat to white supremacy. They exploited the national narrative that viewed black men as a predator to white women's virtues and incited white anger to mobilize voters. In one speech that the Democrats printed, a prominent Georgia writer, enthusiastic, super racist, elderly Rebecca.
Is it about chance or coincidence that they're doing the same thing today, but with a different group of people? Past meets present.
Felton wrote,
"The detention of 1,000 black men a day to protect white womanhood, I say lynch."
This was the gasoline read in newspapers across America. But here's the flame. Alex Manley, the co-owner and publisher of the Daily Record, Wilmington's black newspaper, posted a retort to Mrs. Felton's article. White women who had liaisons with black men did so voluntarily and enthusiastically. Every Negro lynched is called big, burly, black brute, when in fact, many of those who have been dealt with had white men for their fathers, and were not only black and burly, but were sufficiently attractive for white girls of culture and refinement to fall in love with them, as is very well known to all. Tell your men that it is no worse for a black man to be intimate with a white woman than for a white man to be intimate with a colored woman. You cry aloud for virtue of your women when you seek to destroy the morality of ours.
The Democrats made this a viral moment, reprinting the article and sending it to newspapers all over America. Wilmington became famous overnight, and it also became a big draw for white supremacists.
Good old Proud Boys from all over the country found their way to North Carolina, and they did everything in their power to make America great again. With armed patrols at the polls, military militia street patrols, and an armed street gang with a list of black homes to go visit, all to intimidate and terrorize black voters.
These tactics took place across the state to avert what they called Negro rule, and the Democrats won every seat on the ballot. But that wasn't enough. Alex Manley still had a debt, and the current mayor was still a Republican. The following day, they staged a coup d'etat, first burning down the Daily Record after they could not locate Manley.
After Alfred Waddell led the riot through the streets of Wilmington, he proclaimed himself mayor and would leave 300 black men either permanently missing or dead in the streets of Wilmington. The only coup ever on U.S. soil was complete when Waddell, the new mayor of Wilmington, posted the new White Declaration of Independence in the newspapers and at the courthouse. This marked the beginning of black cities that will be destroyed, burned down, and decimated for not adhering to the black code.
In order to
make America great again, you'd have to make America white again.
Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up!
Well, let me say this. You know how they say, like, the past, why don't they let the past go? How can you let the past go when people don't want to let go of the past?
Hi, Sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Night I Sing, and thank you all so much for all the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. So a very big shout out to Moses Ken. If you are not following him, please go follow him.
This answer for the earlier video.
Content, right? And this video he talked about white supremacists and how it failed, white privilege and proud black empowerment, right? This video is packed with so many great information. And he firstly started by asking how is it that white people messed up 400 years of they messed up 400 years, right? Then he asked them how come they allowed that, they held black people and other people of color down for how many years? Absolutely 400 years, when they allow themselves or their own people to get 400 years start ahead of black people. You see, these are the things like when I talk about how far or how the systemic racism has really held black people down for a longer time. And then if there is one thing black people most especially they have been fighting for years, is nothing but to dismantle the system that has been oppressing them, because this system was built way back. And he also mentioned how proud he is to be a black person, because black people have the best stories ever told and all of that. And he went further to say that regardless of everything that has happened, black people are still progressing. Let's get into this.
How did white people mess up a 400-year head start? How did this happen? How is it that a nation of people, a race of people, held people of color by the collar while they allowed their people to get a 400-year head start? You sabotaged anything we could have done. We couldn't read, we couldn't write, we couldn't unify in any way, we couldn't congregate in any way. We weren't even considered human. See, this is why I am so proud to be black. I'm so proud to be a person of color, because we have the best story ever told. Regardless of what criticisms I've given my people, regardless of what critiques, regardless of what I've said about my people, I still view us as the greatest. And by us, I mean people of color. Don't you know who you are? These people held you by the collar, held you in place so you couldn't move, learn, do nothing by yourself. All so they can stay ahead of you. Do you understand what?
Healthcare costs are skyrocketing. Inflation pressures American families. Millions are struggling.
Stay ahead of you. Do you understand what that means? That means that they know how powerful you all are. They know how powerful a black woman is. They know how powerful a black man is. Because if they didn't, guess what? They would have pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps and built America on their own instead of going and kidnapping slaves. Oh, wait, white man, I know what you about to say. Oh, but black people weren't the only slaves. No, we weren't. But we were the only ones who've had our identity completely stripped from us. We are the only ones who have been completely separated and don't even know the origins of African Americans. Oh, but Africa sold you guys into slavery. No. The very few chiefs, kings that did that cooperated, were considered outcasts, alienated, were considered traitors well before that transaction even happened. And plus, it's kind of hard to deny a transaction when we ain't got nothing but bows and arrows and y'all showing up on ships with rifles, making offers that we literally cannot refuse. Let's not forget how America plays. Let's not forget how America presents you with an offer, but the offer is really rhetorical. It's really a trick question. Throughout all the trial and tribulation, throughout all the horrific acts done by you, we are still here. So I ask again, how did you fumble a 400-year head start? How did you fumble a point in time where you were trying to completely eradicate people of color and you couldn't do it? That's why I be so mad at my people. That's why I be so disappointed in my people. That's why I be on y'all the way I be on y'all. Because these motherfuckers know who you are. These motherfuckers know how powerful you are. These motherfuckers know your potential. They just convinced you that your potential is low. They convinced you that you're a nobody. They convinced you that you are nothing and you are lesser than them. When if that was true, they would have built America on their own. They wouldn't have had to go and get them slaves. They wouldn't have had to deal with Africa at all. They wouldn't have had to take out loans from that same tyrannical place that they say they fled from. They wouldn't have had to create alliances with France. They wouldn't have had to use Christianity to start the slave trade if they were so great. How did y'all white folks mess up a 400-year head start? It's the same thing. Every 4 years, they blaming every issue in America on people of color, on immigrants, when you're an immigrant, on Joe Biden, on Kamala Harris, on Barack Obama. They blame it on everybody except the motherfucker that created the system that we in. White people now are like, oh, woe is me, the country's going to shit. Oh my God, the immigrants. Oh my God, we're gonna lose this. Oh my God, the tyrannical government. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? The America's going to shit. No, America's been shit. You just now finding out. You late to the party. Why did you not listen to people of color when we told you all of this back then? See, when it was beneficial to be white, you ignored all of us. But now that your privilege is virtually gone, dead, because the same system, the same government, the same media that you put in place has gotten greedy and now sees you, white man, as a target too. Yes, you have privilege, or at least you had it. And this is usually where they start whining, oh, what privilege do I have today? The 400-year head start that your ancestors gave you, that's a privilege. The fact that y'all were allowed to run full sprint as far as you can run while everybody else was held in place trying to run, can't get nowhere because they are held by their collar, by your ancestors. How did y'all fumble a 400-year head start? God, I love being black. I love being a person of color. Because do you understand the level of failure that is? Every 4 years, this damn country's on the verge of collapse. Every 4 years, it's the same policies being presented. Every 4 years, it's the same promises broken. And guess what you all do? Still participate in this system. But when shit go bad, hey, we need to change this. They're not going to change nothing. You know why? Because your vote is free. You don't demand nothing for your vote. You don't demand nothing for the dollar. You don't demand nothing for nothing. So why would they respect you? Why would they help you? Why would they rebuild America in the image it's supposed to be in when you're paying for corruption? Why would the devil change the devil's ways if you keep playing the same game that the devil likes to play? Here go the whites. It's Kamala Harris, it's Joe Biden, it's Barack Obama. No. It's America. Here's a direct message from a black man to all the racist supremacists of the world. Because y'all seem to only have nuts when you're on social media.
Sonic Temple Art and Music Festival returns for its biggest year.
Wow. I mean, he hit it with so much truth. That's truth. I mean, what can I say? Go behind it. I mean, what it is, what it is, and I just showed you the history. And white people and other people say, what? Why is it that people can't get over it? Because you see on these videos the present and the past. It's the same spirit. It's over the land. It's the same spirit. It's the same spirit. That's why we can't get over it. And it's unjust blood is in it. It need to be corrected. It's more than just apology. It's retribution and reparations. And be right. Because other than that, you know, judgment. The judgments that you see is steady coming up. You know what happened. You know, and we don't take no joy in this. No one takes joy in seeing someone's house and everything taken away, land washed away by nature. But when you look at the history of the generations, like he said, it was a 400-year start. And even though we had weather patterns, but he knows that, remember when we told y'all, and I know there's white people that heard it, that 400 years is up. Before 2019, nobody would talk about this. Everybody was living life like usual. Now, you see the judgments that's hitting in areas that people never, and then people get offended that, yeah, there are people of all walks of life in some of these towns. I've heard a couple places, but it's going back to that ancestral place where there was once towns that did injustice to black people and probably other people. But mostly the ones that got mutilated, just desecrated, basically. And this is what we're trying to tell you. And no one takes joy in seeing something like that. But this is some people call it the ancestry, but I think this is something that is more to it than that. It's sin in the land too. There's a lot of sin in the land, rebellion, and things like that goes along with it. And then it's evil. So evil is going to cost you. When you sell your soul to the devil, he's going to reap the reward. So when you do evil and unjust, somehow God lets him do so much for a certain amount of time, and then it takes place. But there's so much evil that's still being out there that have never been uncovered. And people were trying to tell you, we were warning you the whole time. We were warning, say stop this. You know, do what's right, repair us right. Even those two elderly women in Oklahoma, from Tulsa, Oklahoma, when Oklahoma kind of slapped them in the face and we're not paying no reparations. They just don't. But the Most High God, I said, don't worry, ladies. America's going to pay. She's paying. Start with North Carolina, Florida, and do you know it's hitting slave states? The South is getting hit, and there are people from all walks of life down there. But it's that ancestral spirit that have done that, the hatred, and the ancestral spirit between some people. And I know all white people down there and hate, but the ones that do, the ones that keep up the segregation, they bring the curse upon themselves. The ones in the Klan and all these other white nationalists, they bring the curse upon them, and they don't even know it. The God that they serve is not answering them. We tried to tell you. You're doing a people wrong. They thought that black people was just something to be disposed of. mocked them, and they hurt the wrong people. And have it ever occurred to you that when you hear when someone give you the lesson about Deuteronomy 28 verses 40 to 68, when you read that scripture, and some of you, the white Christians out there, have you ever thought about it? That these were the same descendants that the prophet said in the Bible that they were going to be owned on ships and put all over the world. Have it ever dawned on you that these were God's people? There have been some white people that have come on this social media is telling you the truth. But I think deep down you don't want to believe it. I think like others, you're not the only one, but you're the ones that, because when you see black people, you can't. There's something's deep rooted. Because when you look to another group of people worse than a plague or a bug, it's something up here ain't right. These were the ones who carry that spirit, and they know it. And some of them don't even know that they do it. It's in the bloodline. And then that's why I say you have to truly repent and make it right. Don't be two-faced. Because our native brothers talk about the two-faced and two-tongued. But if you be sincere right, you all right. Or the ones that do is all right. But now you're seeing this. And I believe the Most High God will show many more white people that really want to understand why this keep happening. He's going to reveal it. What we're telling you, he's revealing it. He's going to tell you who we really are. You're going to have to accept it. And to go back and tell your friends and family. If they don't believe it, don't worry about it. They're going to find out the hard way. Because a hard head make a soft behind. When that, remember that the 2019, what you think that was about? And you seen black folks go to Africa. What do you see how it connects to the Bible? Didn't you see it? How the people you've been looking to that look similar to you are not the people, because they wouldn't put on ships, stripped up their clothing. They had clothing when they left the parts of Europe. And you know how the way they made their way by the comforts of the UN to recognize Israel as a state. The Israel that you persecute, still Israel is a people that's still persecuted in the land of America and other parts of the world. The Israel is like the Javion McGree. That's the Israel. Is those young men, black truckers. That's the Israel. Yet you've been persecuting, that the cops have covered up. They persecuting, and the cries of the people went up to the heaven. Now it's about to hit everything around these towns. It's not over. We're warning you. The ones who are righteousness are warning you. You have to look past the color. Look towards the spirit. Because we're trying to warn you. So you can repent. So you won't be part of the plague that's really tormenting God's people. So people say, what does the past have to be? What does that have to do with the present? I just showed you. This is the second video. I just showed you how the past meets the present. That's why we can't get over it. Because, and even though places like Lake Lanier, they can't get over it. These places are haunted. Don't you see? 216 people unalive in that lake in Georgia. You don't see it, do you? Some you just, the past is the past. Oh, why can't we all be human? We are human. The problem is that some people that look like you don't think that we're human, psychologically. They say it with their words, but the actions show what the history, what their ancestor and their family told them, what a black person is. Sometimes we go behind your walls. We all up in you. We know how you move. Like you said, 400-year start. We've been around you for 400 years. We know you. Some of you have been bold to say the things in front of us. But what your words did was open up a door. So, to the black people, hang on. It's going to get more interesting, and the other nationalities are going to see who we are. They're going to see the signs. Watch. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe. And yeah, this is going to, so this is the people that say, oh, why can't it just go? There's your answer. I played that video. Take care, be blessed. Shout out to all the content creators who make this video.